Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Donna Nelson, founder of the Adopt a Single Mom Project and Adopt a Single Mom for Christmas. Thank you for being here with us. Today, we are on part 3 of our Back to School series. I have a wonderful guest for you today. I'm super excited about having Jessica IVES here from Family Service Association. And she's going to share with us how to parent during the pandemic and all things around mental well-being and the uncertainty that we're all facing right now with the pandemic and with work and with back to school. So hang tight. You might want to have a notebook to take some notes with some resources and ways that you can reach out to Jessica and Family Service Association as we get closer to the end. Just a couple of things. If you're not familiar with the Adopt a Single Mom Project, I'll give you some quick overview and a way to contact us for more information. But first, I want to tell you what to expect today. We'll talk probably for about 30-45 minutes, depending on how far I take Jessica off track. And we encourage you to post questions either live if you're with us or on the replay if there's something that relates to what Jessica is talking about, or you have questions about the Adopt a Single Mom Project. I will make sure she gets them after the fact, but we'll also have a Q&A at the end of what Jess is sharing with us today so that you can get your questions answered live here. Please share out this live, whether you're watching us now on the live or on the replay. Someone in our community that you know needs to hear this important conversation, and they need the resources that are going to be shared. So tag a friend in the thread or share it on your timeline. Help us spread it out to the greater community. All right. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Adopt a Single Mom Project, we're a membership organization that provides a holistic approach to empowering the working single mom here in Northeastern Pennsylvania and really helping to enhance her quality of life. We do that through some mentoring, providing sustainable resources like what we're doing here today, and social and emotional support to help close the gaps for all those ways that single moms need support. They are an underserved, under-recognized segment of our community who needs a great deal of support. And that's why I started this organization in 2017 through our Christmas gifting program just for single moms. So you can find more out about us on our website at adoptasinglemom.org. About membership, about volunteering, about supporting us in a number of ways, and how, if you're a working single mom here in Northeastern Pennsylvania, how we can support you as well. So please reach out to us and find us. Let me introduce you to our guest today. Jessica IVES is the Director of Case Management and Community Programs at Family Service Association of Northeastern Pennsylvania. She is an expert in family and mental health, and which is why we invited her here today to help us navigate all the things that are causing us to feel anxious or uncertain about the things that are going on right now in most of our lives, particularly as parents in a community and businesses trying to figure this out as we enter into back to school. Jessica's been with Family Service Association of NEPA for nearly 9 years. She's a licensed social worker pursuing her clinical licensure. Currently, she supervises several programs at the agency that work with youth, adults, and families, but also has experience in community mental health. She received her bachelor's of psychology at Wilkes University and her master's from Temple. So again, she's going to be sharing with us parenting in a pandemic, finding clarity in this time of uncertainty. So Jess, lay it on us.
Well, thank you so much, Donna, for having me. And I really love seeing all the things that you do with your organization. So this is wonderful, this series and everything that you do. So thank you for giving that to our community and single moms. So what I'll start off by saying is that anything we talk about today maybe a little bit triggering. So because we're in a tough spot right now with everything that's going on. So what I always say when I'm presenting about this type of topic is that if it's something that is bothersome to you at this moment, feel free to take a moment, step out of the room. If you're watching live or if you're watching the recorded version later, take a few moments for yourself, because self-care is really important. You can come back to it. Later on, we'll talk about some self-care and some mindfulness and meditation a little bit too, which I really enjoy. So those are really helpful in moments that may be difficult. So I thought I would start off by telling you a little bit about my organization, Family Services Association. Like Donna had said, and thank you for that introduction, I've been here since 2011, and I supervise several case management programs. And we have diverse services. So we work with children, adults, and families. We work with couples. A lot of our programs are focused with Luzerne County children and youth and juvenile and adult probation, but we also provide family and adult, or family, adult, and counseling for children. We do a Parent-Child Plus program, guardianship services, but we also have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline service, Helpline 211. And that's a service that you can call any time of the day just by dialing 211, and a trained caseworker will answer the phone and help you get the resources that you need. So I say that first because it's such an important resource in our community that you can just call and say, I need services for food banks or mental health services or so on and so forth, anything that you need, and that caseworker can link you up to those. You can also text 211 as well by texting your zip code to 898-211. And by doing that, the caseworker can see where you're from and identify resources within your region. So it's really helpful with that. So at any point you could do that. Okay. So a couple weeks ago, I did a little bit of a presentation with NAMI, similar to our conversation today, and talked with parents and community members and professionals in our community. And there were a lot of different thoughts about, I'm sure that you're having as well. We're in this pandemic that in the beginning, we didn't know what to think. And I know personally, I thought, okay, it's, across the world, right? We don't have to worry about it here. And of course, I had the compassion for people across the world, but I think we're all in denial for a little while. I know I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that was me. And then all of a sudden, it's here, right? And schools are shutting down, and we're having these thoughts of panic of, what do I do with my kids? What's happening with work? What if we get sick? What if family gets sick? And there was so much. I remember being able to handle a lot of that. And I was getting through. My son is now 5. He was 4 and finishing up his year in pre-K. And I was sad, grieving that loss of him not being able to have his pre-K graduation, and just like other parents not being able to celebrate those different milestones. But I remember it kind of all came to a head for me when I'm not the type to go out and over prepare too much. I often give the example that, like, there's a big snowstorm coming, and I'm the one who's in the grocery store when there's already 5 inches on the ground saying, hey, do you have any bread in the back? Because I didn't prepare. But everybody was going out buying so much food because everyone was afraid we'd be locked down, couldn't go to the grocery store. And at one point, my kind of like tipping point was, I need to go get chicken nuggets. And because that's how I felt safe, because I knew I was going to have those chicken nuggets in my house for my child because he's a picky eater. So once I was able to go out and get those couple of things, I felt better. I wasn't out hoarding toilet paper, but I was out getting chicken nuggets. That made me feel safe. Looking back on that now, I can laugh about it. But at that moment, I felt better. And my primary point with the chicken nugget story is that we all probably did something that maybe felt silly at the time. Maybe we're doing something now that feels silly, but we're doing it because that's how we feel safe. And everything you're feeling right now is valid. All of our feelings are valid, but it's a matter of how we then externalize them and what we do with it for ourselves, for our children, for our families as a whole, because it's going to have long lasting effects. And now we're moving into a time about going back to school. And this is obviously very anxiety provoking because there's a lot of talk about, are we doing hybrid school, all virtual, all the different options that we never knew existed before. And a lot of judgment too, I've noticed, especially because we're surrounded by so much social media, where some families can have the option of sending or staying home with their children, doing virtual all the time, but some families cannot. And what I say to everybody is you're making the best choice you need to for your family. Nobody wants their child or ourselves to go out and get sick or risk their safety, but we have to do what's best for our own family. So that's one of my major points for everybody I talk to personally and professionally, is that you have to trust your decisions and trust yourself. Okay. So that's really, really important. Make sure you do that. So right now, we're probably still feeling pretty anxious, right? Anxious, maybe depressed, fearful of what's to come. In the beginning, we were wondering, oh, maybe it'll be 2 weeks and everyone will go back to school. Everyone will be back to work. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was extended and extended. And now we're going on 4 or 5 months now, right? Losing track of time, and we're going back to school, not knowing what's happening. So personally, I keep thinking, oh, there's still so much time, but really, school's starting in 3 weeks for some kids. So it's pretty stressful. So some of the things I want to talk about today is our feelings and how that's manifesting in the home and how that's impacting your families overall, and what we kind of need to be aware of moving forward. One of the other points that I try to emphasize, and I think about for myself too, we've been hearing the phrase new normal everywhere, right? There is a new normal maybe for wearing masks or social distancing, but we also have to define what the new normal is for us as parents, as professionals, as parents and families, because your new normal is going to be specific for you, not just for everybody. So your normal may look like all 100% virtual school. Your new normal may be a hybrid, or your new normal may be not working and staying home. You have to define and what it means for you, and also know, again, that's okay, and be supportive of other people. One of something that really kind of holds me together is my support network. And that's why I think I'm so drawn to your organization, Donna, is because you create this support network for women who need each other and who can relate to each other. And so I really lean on my friends who I kind of grew into parenting with, and colleagues, and even some mom groups that I'm a part of through social media, to lean on each other and know and be supportive of each other. That's really important to my mental health and important to their mental health as well. So something to just keep in mind. So as we look at families and as parents, we're feeling fearful, feeling anxious, maybe depressed. But that's probably coming out in some different ways at home, right? And that's affecting our parenting. And even if you think that you're covering it up pretty well, and you're doing a good job of it, that's probably not what's happening, because there's still going to be some tension. Holding it inside, covering it up is not good for you, and it's not good for your kids either. And that's why we want to talk about this issue, because we want to make sure everyone's taking care of themselves. So, some of the things that I've noticed professionally and personally with some of my social circles is that there's been consequences in the family with children's routines and mental health being disrupted. I know personally, within a week or so, with my son being home from school, he we were trying to keep a good routine, but it was hard to do because my husband was working from home then. I was not, so he was confused. Um, all of a sudden, his friends weren't there, his teacher wasn't there, and he's home with dad all day. Um, but he heard coronavirus, right? And we explained the best we could, and he was understanding. But then we started seeing some changes. He didn't want to sleep alone. He didn't want to kind of be alone. He was waking up during the night. We're finally getting him back on schedule with some of that, but we had to adjust and meet him where he was, and really take a look at ourselves too, and say, let's not talk about coronavirus at home. Let's not talk about, work stress or anything like that. Let's just focus on the family, and I'll talk about some good things to do. So,
Jess, can we talk about that for a
sure, yeah,
second?
sure.
So, thank you for sharing that because, I know, as you said, it's our energy that our kids feel our tension. They see
Hmm.
our facial expressions, even when words are not spoken, and how that's important. So, when we package that then with they hear these words and the tone of our words, and even if they don't have a great understanding of exactly what it means, they can feel that this sounds like unease. This sounds
Yes.
like anger or frustration. And even as you're sharing this, this is your little guy that is 5,
Hmm.
right? So, we most of us parents think as much as we look at our kids at 5 as like little adults sometimes in the way that
Hmm.
we treat them and our expectations, we another side of us thinks that they don't have an understanding of what's going on, right?
Sure.
So we
Yeah.
share too openly about all the news that's going on, again because of our own way of coping or lack of understanding. And I'm hearing this from our parents and seeing it also in the Facebook groups and in our circles where I am, and parents absolutely saying that their kids' behavior is changing, that they're worried about their children's anxiety, that their sleeping patterns are changing,
Hmm.
um, and what to do about it. Um, and the ways of dealing with that is this not lack of understanding that they're feeling what you're saying, they're feeling what you're feeling, they're
Hmm.
reading the way that you're behaving, and can just elaborating on helping parents understand that, I think would be really helpful in um, it's not a time to discipline your children.
Hmm.
It's a time to express more compassion and help them navigate it. So, can you share some of that with us?
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that I started personally, like with working with my own son, was recognizing what he's feeling. And this is something that I've taught through as a parenting specialist as well, teaching awareness of emotions and feelings. And that's hard to do sometimes, because sometimes we can't always label it ourselves. So it's sometimes difficult to do with children. But one thing I wanted to see if I can share. I'm gonna see if I can pull this up. Actually, I'm not sure if I can, but that's okay. One thing I'll do is I'll post some different links later, so everyone has access to them. But one thing that I think is very important, I'm just pulling it up as a guide, is like I said, learning how to talk about emotions and feelings to gain better emotional. Having technical difficulties. Can you still hear me, Donna?
Yeah, it broke up there a little bit. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
hear you
some
now. Yeah, we're still losing your audio.
reason, can you still hear me or see me?
Now I hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see you anymore, but I will just talk.
Oh, all right. We lost her. Jess will be back as soon as she gets her technology worked out there. So, yep, these are always situations that are going to occur because we're relying on technology. So, as soon as Jess comes back, we'll have her continue sharing with some parenting wisdom on how to help our children navigate and how to help us navigate with our children through these difficult emotional experiences and when their behavior looks like it's the problem, but it's not. so, so Jess will share more on that, and then whatever resources she has, we'll share with both our email and we'll have them. If there are links, we'll share them in the thread as well. So please post your questions that you might have, or share a story that you might be experiencing with your own children, or even noticing in coworkers, or even feeling and noticing in yourself where you're having some challenges and things that are coming up. Because the truth is that we're all feeling a sense of grief in some way, whether it's our lifestyle, that our old lifestyle that we haven't been connected with, feelings of not, feeling distant and disconnected from our support system, noticing things about ourselves, not just grief, but also, hey, you're back.
Hi. I am so sorry. My computer like crashed or something, and I just lost you. So I'm on my phone now.
Oh God. Yeah, I don't know. Heather did hers on her phone yesterday because it worked better. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
all
I'm
good.
sorry. Okay, we're back.
Hey, we're here. So, yeah. So, all right. So, just picking up on whatever those resources and some ideas on, realizing that it's not the behavior that's the challenge. It's what we're feeling emotionally, in that sense of feeling either disconnected or overwhelmed or confused. And what we can do as parents and caregivers to help support our kids through that, and not taking an approach of discipline. And you were just sharing what you were doing with your son.
Yes. So some of the things that I've worked with my son, as well as have taught as a parenting specialist and social worker, is teaching mindful parenting and emotional intelligence. So we want to be able to make sure that kids know it's okay to be able to express what they're feeling. And not only not to sit there and talk about everything that's going on, but to talk about what they're feeling in response to what's going on. So, wanting to make sure we pay attention to the 5 A's: attention to yourself, how, like what we mentioned before, making sure we're mindful of what we're talking about, but also of your child, and knowing what kind of warning signs there are if your child's having certain behaviors, anxiety, and what that looks like for your child. Acceptance of yourself, but also of your child as well. So, kind of like what you mentioned before, less focus on punishment and discipline, but more focus on the structure and the validation of what's going on. That doesn't mean that if there's behaviors that are happening that are negative, that the child should be able to do that or get away with all those things. But being mindful of gentle parenting, because we know that these behaviors, especially if they're new, it's because of what's happening, because of their anxiety. And also teaching your child, but also yourself, a sense of appreciation and gratitude for what you have, showing some affection and allowance, not allowance the kind that where we have to reach into our pockets, but the allowance of being able to feel the way you feel, having the ability to express that and be who you are as well. And that's really important to learning some of those emotions of what they are. So, especially younger children, and I'm going back and forth, but younger children, and I was talking about like my child crawling into bed with me, my son. But a few people who I've been talking to, their 16, 17-year-olds are doing the same thing. And that's because we're a safe space for our kids, right? So hopefully, yeah. So 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds crawling in bed with mom or dad because that's a safe space. So obviously this is affecting everybody. But learning emotional intelligence is really important from an early age, because then children are able to identify what they're feeling and be able to learn how to react or cope with that. So one of the things that I'll post later is a chart. And we know there's so many different types of emotions, but we often stick with anger, happiness, sadness. But under that, there could be so many other feelings that are associated with that. Maybe some of that anger is actually coming from embarrassment. Maybe it's stemming from sadness. All of these different emotions can be layered together, and that then affects some of the behaviors that are coming out, whether it be with us as parents or with the children as well. So some examples for learning emotions. I know that sounds silly, but I want to be able to identify them. So there's different things that we can do while we, I'll talk about not paying attention to too much TV, staying away from the TV, but while we are watching family-friendly movies, being able to say, hey, what do you think that little boy who's crying right now, what do you think he's feeling? Oh, he's sad? Why do you think he's sad? He's sad because someone broke his toy, he's upset about that. So identifying really what everything is and why he's acting the way he's acting. And then children are then able to say, oh, I'm sad because I'm embarrassed, rather than just saying I'm sad and crying. And it helps parents understand what's going on. And that's also good for self-reflection as well. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I talked about today, and this came up from, it's very important to remember, but came up from a conversation I actually had with my son this morning. He spends his day with his grandparents, my parents, and yesterday they found a newspaper from the 1950s. And he was like, yeah, Mom, and it had a picture of a truck, and they were selling trucks in this newspaper. And I said to him, what's a newspaper? And he's like, I don't know. He didn't know. So I explained to him, I said, well, we still have newspapers. I said, but, everybody used to get newspapers every morning, and you used to learn about what happened the day before. And then the next day you'd get another newspaper, and that would be it, besides a little bit of gossip between neighbors or people in town. that made me think about how different we are now. I can pull up my phone and go and get news from any source. I could go onto Facebook, Instagram, all the different news channels, constantly inundated with stories about coronavirus, other stressful things that are happening around the world right now, other things we're seeing that are traumatic. And repeated exposure to all of that is very traumatic. So we know just bringing some of that up for our children, they're confused and that's a trauma to them. But when we're constantly digesting all of this information, it creates that tension. You start to feel it. So I said to him, we can go on our phones now and look up anything we want to. I said, but they didn't have phones back in the 1950s when that newspaper was from. And so that's the only thing they had, just to look at the stories of the day and the pictures of the trucks they were selling. And he was like, oh, wow, do you have a newspaper now? And I said, no, I don't have one with me. But we have to be able and be mindful of all the information we're consuming and around all the time, because that really affects us overall.
That reminds me, Jess, like as you're saying that, I'm like, wow, like to think about what the important for me, how I see that a little different for how information affects us differently today, not just the amount of it that we have access to ongoing.
Right.
And I'll say the quality of it, meaning the way people interact online and, you're getting this immediate this feedback from people, good, bad, and different. Right.
Right.
But, the idea of the newspaper, and as you said, it was yesterday's news.
Yeah.
It could have been last week's news because it's something that happened somewhere else in the world and we're just getting it essentially. Right. So there was some sense of, I think about my family because we were a big newspaper family. Every morning that newspaper was very important. If it didn't come when it was supposed to, it set the day off in a bad tone kind of thing with my grandparents. So it was kind of funny. But the newspaper, as you're reading it, it's yesterday's news. So there's this sense of that doesn't affect me because I'm safe right now because that was something that happened yesterday, even though, somebody broke in the store downtown or robbed somebody's car or a house got broken in or, those kind of what we'd say is minor in the whole scope of things that happen. Right. But there was some sense of safety because that already happened. And what we're experiencing now is we can go on, watch the disaster in Beirut live as it's happening. When all of the looting was happening, we could watch it live. And it was in the moment and it's fearful and it could be coming downtown here. And, it has the news affects us differently now, I feel like, because it's right now in this moment as opposed to, that already happened, whatever.
Yeah, and definitely. And a lot of people will use that phrase, things were so different back then. Not necessarily. It's just people didn't know about it because it wasn't everywhere at our fingertips.
And our perception was different, right? Like we're perceiving it differently because it's not live.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
So we have to be aware of that, not just for ourselves, but our children as well, because we want to make sure they know how to handle, constant exposure to it. So I know that my son, he has an iPad and he watches TV, but we have to limit how much he watches and what he watches. And that should be across the board as well. And I think if we teach our children this from the beginning, they're going to carry that with them through into adulthood, to be able to put down their phones sometimes and stay away from it. And I know plenty of people now who have had to coach it out of themselves to sign off of Facebook and stay away from it because it was affecting their mental health. And it's legit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I know even some of our members are like, see ya, I'm off Facebook, can't stand the negativity, can't stand,
Mhm.
the news thread, people bullying each other. And those are the things that I worry about for our kiddos as they're going back to school or participating in sporting events and, just being in the community, but especially going back to school right now. Heather and I talked about it yesterday a little bit, because she has a child care center with over, almost 200 kids. And what are the consequences, for our children
Yeah.
that have been home and they're not wearing masks, and now we're sending them back to school. And so for some
Mhm.
of our kiddos who are have an aversion to things being on them, I mean, I don't like tags. A tag will drive me crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't mind wearing masks, and that, bother me on my face. But, like our kiddos have these, they're not really ticks, but, like things that bother them that, and some of them may have, these little quirks of things. And, some of our moms, I think about, they have kids that have oppositional defiance disorder and ADHD. And, these are kiddos that are going back into the school system that are going to be required to wear a mask all day, that are having a bad day or just not feeling it for the day. And I worry about not just their mental well-being and their ability to cope, but also the stress also that is being put on them to stay the line, keep
Right.
your mask on, stay away from that student, go sit down, like whatever, all of that. So, what can you give us as parents to help our children in some resilience building blocks that can be really helpful day to day, but also as parents. So we're not losing, I mean, my kid is 25. So I say us parents, I'm just speaking as a whole as parents. So we're not losing our crap every day over notes from the teachers, a phone call from the nurse, a kid coming home crying every day in distress. And I know I'm laying out worst case scenario here. These are real scenarios that parents deal with before coronavirus.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So, I think about our single moms who are worried about, like, how do I go back to work and how long are my kids going to be in school and how am I going to do this? So they're already in a state of, as you said, this uncertainty, and I'm not sure how I'm going to navigate all this. So
Mhm.
layering on these school expectations and, children's, potential issues. So give us your magic.
I hope it's magic. But in terms of, you mentioned about the expectations at school themselves. Don't wait until the last minute to start having the conversations with your children about going back to school. Now, going back to what I said initially, we don't want to inundate them with worry, but also have realistic conversations. So, using the phrase that I don't like, this is what our new normal is. This is something you're not used to, but we're going to see how it plays out. And you're going to have to, to wear the masks, and you're not going to be able to play with your friends the same way. Kind of gently coaching them now, not the night before, but now, and talking about it. A lot of my teacher friends have been sharing on social media about preparing kids now by letting them sit down with a mask on for 15, 20, 30 minutes and kind of building up on it while they're home now through the summer to prepare them for that. So they're used to it. Some kids are getting used to it. Other kids, they may struggle a little bit if there's any type of developmental issues that they're struggling with, sensory issues. That's when you're sitting there trying to practice with it, they're going to build up some of that acceptance of the mask, not just tolerance of it. It was hard difficult to get used to it ourselves, sitting in work or going places.
Mhm.
So now for me, I really don't even notice it. So by preparing kids now, it may be helpful for when they go back to school. But in terms of all of the stress that's going to come with school, and like you said, not losing it after when everybody gets home or everybody's stuck at home together doing virtual school, there needs to be quality time in as well. So there's going to be a lot of stress, whether families are working from home or their school from home. Make sure that you're also having quality time as a family. Get outside and do things. Sunshine, green grass, even when the weather's not the best, it's good to be outside. It's good for your soul. So I know even on the rainy days, we go out and jump in the puddles. Just get out, get away from everything else and be together as a family so that you can forget about some of the stress and the kiddos can too. Talk about the day, not just, oh, were you able to wear the mask all day? No, talk about what's something really good that happened today. And if they say I kept my mask on all day, then say that's great, praise them, right? And you could say, me too, I did too. So talk about the positive stuff, because those are the things we can build upon that we're grateful for. Continue doing things for yourself too. And I know this is difficult for all parents. Sometimes at the end of the day, there's just not much time to do anything, but build some time in, even if it's 5-10 minutes here or there, to do something for yourself. And that could be read, not just, a lot of parents will say, oh, taking a shower is my self-care. Yeah, taking a shower is good, but it's also, you need it. Do something else, whether it's going for a quick walk if you can, calling a friend to watch the kids. Do something for you, because if you're taking care of yourself, you're going to be able to take care of your kids better. And another thing that families have been doing, and it doesn't have to be extravagant, but checking in on other people. Not so much that you're going to expend too much of your energy if you don't have much yourself, but we talk about family care, self-care, but also community care. So maybe that's checking in on an elderly neighbor, or maybe you can have your child send a card and just say, hey, just sending you some sunshine for the day, dropping off baked goods or something, volunteering for an organization, talking about different community agencies that maybe you and your child can do something for. And again, it doesn't have to involve a lot of time or money, but a little bit helps a long way. And there's certainly a lot of places that can use all of our help during this time. So just making sure you're building in some of that quality time as a family. And I'm going to link also some meditation too, which when I bring up meditation with families that I work with and friends, they say, oh, no, it doesn't help. You need to practice it. Meditation, imagery, guided meditation, it's all really helpful if you just practice a little bit. It's uncomfortable because we're not used to stopping and taking deep breaths all the time, but we really need to be able to activate our parasympathetic nervous system, be able to activate that calm and learn how to bring ourselves back down. So at the end of the day, we're able to relax, get some sleep, and start all over in the morning.
That is such good. I mean, in my coaching business, that's a key part of how I work with my clients. It's one of the first things that we do together, because we can't do good work together, as you know, if we are in a stress response or our nervous system is in an activated response of, feeling angry or, ready to
Yeah.
So, the one of the tools that I use that when I did a mindfulness class here in the community that I taught, and it reminded me, as you're saying that, one of the moms came back to me and said that she taught it to her toddler and preschooler, was the Calm app. So
Yes.
it is absolutely difficult to just sit and allow our body to be still and our minds
Mhm.
quiet, because it's extremely uncomfortable for most of us who don't have a practice of doing that, because we
Right.
start feeling things that are uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And our body just wants to keep moving to avoid whatever it is that is uncomfortable for us. And so having the Calm app was a really great tool for the kids too. They have a kids version of it, and it's
Mhm.
free, so you can get it
Yeah.
on your phone. And then it's guided, so it allows you to do it without forcing yourself to the discipline of doing it on your own. So yeah, that's a really great tip. I love that.
Yeah, and it really is helpful. And once you go through it a few times and you practice it, it becomes second nature, and you look forward to the next time you're going to do it. And with the Calm app and other similar apps, they have, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It could be 1 minute meditations just to stop.
1 minute. I was talking with one of our moms last night, and before every session, we always do like a breath work, a little like less than 5 minute meditation with breath work. And I had her literally do this breathing technique for 2 minutes, and she was like, "Oh, wow, that felt so good. It's so relaxing." I'm like, and that was only 2 minutes. Like, you're
Yeah,
right. It doesn't take much to calm
right.
us. It just takes the consistent practice and to be able to teach our kiddos that. Even when they're having a hard time through schoolwork or coming home from school, or as one of the moms commented in a Facebook group saying that, her early elementary, I think second grader, was really fearful of going back to school because she's afraid that she's going to get sick, you
Hmm.
know? So our kids are feeling it, they're hearing it, and they're wise to it, but still not understanding it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I wanted to say too. And I've had this conversation with many people. We're all going through a difficult time in some way. We've all been affected. And before you're in over your head, though, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to call and find resources you may need. It's okay to ask, where can I find a therapist or a counselor, not only for yourself, but for your kids as well. And I have a few friends and few family members who reach out and say, I just need a little bit of extra help.
Mhm.
And that's okay, to be able to do that, because then it's teaching your children that it's okay. You don't have to do it by yourself. We can get a little bit of help. And because everybody's going through a tough time.
Yes.
So,
I do see it a lot with our single moms, because there's so much that comes into the life of being a single mom
mhm,
often, and that our kids have experienced, things that have had a negative impact on them. So now
mhm,
putting in this level of uncertainty and inconsistency and not knowing what to expect going forward
mhm,
is, I'll just say, kind of aggravating it even
yeah.
more of what was already going on. So tell us, and then I want you to share. I can't believe it's already 10 of. Gosh, 50 minutes in already. And so tell us, um, what should we be seeing in our kids at different ages that should cue a parent? Maybe you should reach out and get some help in a different area, particularly in mental health, with a counselor or some kind of group session or whatever for our kids. And what should we be noticing in ourselves? What level of discomfort or lack of capacity to cope or whatever, when we should throw in the towel and say, all right, I can't do it on my own anymore.
Mhm. I think that any type of behavior that's escalating, that's maybe not of the, I hate to say normal, but normal behaviors that you're saying for yourself, for your children, that may be escalating. You're not seeing it kind of leveling out. So, and this could apply for anybody over any age. Some of the things that we look for is a complete shutting down, maybe not talking about what's going on. Teenagers especially will often isolate and not want to talk about what's going on, just kind of coming home, staying up in their room. Some of that could be normal developmental as well, but you know your kids best, so you have to see, are they coming out to eat dinner, with the family, or talking about their day a little bit. So keeping an eye on, I know we can't go out and necessarily, it's not the safest thing to do with socializing, but for teenagers, are they communicating with their friends? Ask about how their friends are doing. Are they doing well? And see what they respond to. Oh, I haven't talked to him. I'm not really talking to anybody. That can cue that they're isolating from their friends too. And that's important to pay attention to, because sometimes kids at any age don't want to talk to us as parents, but if they're isolating from their peer groups, that's something to look for as well. Behaviors, like I said, that are not on par with what you normally see. Maybe, like I mentioned, my son wanting to come and stay with me at night. But if your child's not sleeping at all, staying up all night, panic attacks, nightmares, I've noticed are pretty high right now with some kids experiencing them. That may be a cue that there's something you want to look into a little bit more. And also for yourself too, sometimes we slip up into some, we may have some relapses, substance use, thoughts of self-harm, isolation. Those are some things we need to pay attention to as well, where you may need to reach out and get some help. And don't be, like I said before, don't be afraid to do that.
Awesome. So, all right. So turn us on to all the resources, or some of the most helpful resources that we know we can get through FSA or have access to getting connected to the greater community through 211.
So there are so many. I think we could talk for days. A little bit about our 211. Like I'd mentioned a little bit before, 211, you're able to call up and ask for a specific need that you have. So if you're in need of food, we have access to all the food pantries in our area that you just give your zip code, your area, and you're able to get access to when there's food distribution. We also offer mental health resources, whether it be for children or adults or families. You can also call our 211 if you're in a personal crisis, maybe an anxiety attack and you need someone to talk to. Or if you're feeling thoughts of self-harm and you need to talk to someone, we are trained to be able to provide that service.
And that's 24 hours, right? There's always someone, 7 days a week, 24 hours.
Yeah. And for anybody who's watching who may not be, in the northeastern Pennsylvania region, like we cover 17 counties, but 211 is across the nation, not complete coverage yet, but there are different resources in different areas, but it is across all of Pennsylvania. So you're able to dial 211 and get the resources you need for all different areas across the state. So whether it's food, shelter, housing coordination, mental health, substance use, we're able to link you up with those resources.
So are those kind of resources that are offered through your agency directly, are those free to the community? How does that work?
The 211 is just calling in and requesting the resources to be coordinated with that. The services that Family Service offer, it depends. We have some contracted programs with, like I had mentioned before, the county, but we do have counseling. And that's a fee for service. It depends on your insurance as well. We do offer other programs such as anger management and batterers intervention groups and a turning points group for females. So we do offer those for self-referral or for anybody who may be referred from the courts as well. We also offer a Parent-Child Plus program, which is for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and we'll be starting with a new group in the fall. But we have a home visitor that actually goes out to the homes and teaches parents the importance of education and instills that value into the little toddlers and preschoolers who are just starting off on their educational path. Helps teach some of those foundations, and also helps the family link to resources that are needed, and then sets them off onto a track of education, maybe referrals to early Head Start, pre-K, even into kindergarten. So really important to get off on the right foot.
Yeah, awesome.
So all of our programs are different and depending on different needs.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're almost at the top of the hour. What else would you like to share with us? Anything, any closing thoughts or things that I've derailed you from that you wanted to share?
I just like to say I'm sorry about the technical issues, but really overall, just through this time, everybody's navigating it. And like I had said in the beginning, everything everyone's feeling is valid. Just make sure you're able to take a step back and use your supports. Call somebody. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes. Phone a friend.
Phone a friend, yep.
Yeah. Or phone 211.
Her 211, yep.
Yeah. And that person will be your new friend. Well, I just want to say I have used 211 many times. Anytime someone reaches out to us and needs a resource, our first line of defense is call 211, see what's available in the community, because it's such an amazing resource. And every person I've talked to that has answered the phone there has just been so incredibly helpful, so diligent in finding an answer if they don't know and trying to help figure it out. And sometimes there's not a resource. And that's okay. We need to know where the gaps are. And it's part of what we do at the Adopt a Single Mom Project is try to fill the gaps because the community doesn't always have those resources. But the things that we're talking about today, there are plenty of resources in the community to support both children, families, and individuals, and all of the things that you've shared with us. And so we're really grateful for everything that Family Service Association does to support the community. And I definitely appreciate you, Jess, and all that you do and who you are as a beautiful human. And thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much.
A little peek into your life with your kiddo.
Thank you so much.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for being here with us.